special edition of Irish Whisky Review. And tonight we go live to England to talk to a gentleman who is an expert on English whisky, if there ever was such a thing. Is there, Marty?
Justin, this is uncharted territory for me. I feel like Neil Armstrong. We're going to places that no people have never been before, you know.
I know. Listen, that's what everybody else was saying. So, Richard, tell us about English whisky. Why does it exist?
Well, look, I'm no expert in the traditional sense of the word. I'm merely a very enthusiastic amateur. But English whisky is just extraordinarily exciting. You know, we're in a sort of a hiatus of distilleries starting to produce whisky. That which is out there is fantastic. English Whisky Company in Norfolk sort of kicked the ball off in the early 2000s, and sort of 15 years later, there's now almost 26 distilleries in the process of producing whisky here in England. So it's definitely the right time to get interested and get involved.
Okay, so you've done all this in lockdown. I mean, Marty, what do you think of England finally getting their act together and doing a whiskey?
Well, the thing about it is, England's sort of always been associated with gin, and the sort of big heavy peated malts from Scotland never really made their way to England. It was always seen as being a bit too rough and coarse for the English palate. I have this book, Justin, Richard. This is Alfred Bernard's 1885. He went round the British Isles to go to all the different distilleries. In it, he says that England has 10 licensed distilleries, most of them confined to manufacture of plain spirit. So it's just basically neutral alcohol. But there's 4 whisky distilleries. Two in Liverpool, which had a big Irish population, and then 1 in Bristol and 1 in East London. So there's not a great tradition of whisky in England, but all these new distilleries. I mean, there's almost as many distilleries now in England as there is in Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can see behind me, whichever way I go, it's the wrong way. There's a lot of English whisky out there now, which is really exciting, and it's fantastic. We've got whisky from pretty much all 4 corners of England. We've got whisky in Yorkshire, the Lakes, all the way down through Shropshire, the Cotswolds, into the West Country, all the way down into Cornwall with Hicks and Healy, and then back over to Kent. So, the whole country is getting on board. But it's not just a hobby, it's not just a fad. These are really serious distilleries producing really exciting products that are very different to what you get in Scotland, and for very many reasons.
And I think the thing about it is, with all the new expressions coming through in England, some of it's craft, some of it's probably not going to be the mainstay of the distillery overall, because they're primarily gin manufacturers, but some of them are quite big operations. They're major. They're heading towards being major players. Maybe not just there yet, but it certainly looks that way.
Definitely. I mean, there's plenty that have set out with the purpose of creating English whisky, and they're doing so in a variety of different ways. They've got different equipment, different processes. The products themselves are very different. But yeah, of course, there's some that are, Cotswolds now is stocked in Waitrose and Sainsbury's, which is a huge achievement for such a small distillery that's only 6 years old. But the entire production from England, the entire output, is equivalent to a single Scotch distillery, a single large one. So it's a very different playing field.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that most people don't appreciate, certainly for Scotch, is that most of the barley is grown in England. They don't like being told this. This is a bit of a thorn in their side. But Scotland, the climate if you planted barley across the whole of Scotland, it wouldn't be enough. So they have to import most of it from England. So there's an argument to be had about the sort of idea of terroir with you have with wine. Do you get that with whiskey? I have my doubts in many instances. some of the Scottish distilleries, they import barley from England. They distill it on site and then ship it down to Glasgow to mature. So I have misgivings about the idea of terroir with whiskey and such. But in terms of English whiskey, do you see a style appearing, or different regions possibly having different sort of takes on whiskey, or is it just?
I don't think regionality comes into it so much as the individual distillery's identity. I mean, if you take Yorkshire, for instance, you've got Spirit of Yorkshire producing a spirit in a much more traditional way that you might associate with Scotland. They've got the Forsyth stills, and they work with Jim Swan on the setup. Then also in York, you've got Cooper King, and they were inspired by whiskey production in Tasmania and have imported a Tasmanian still, and it's a very different process. But I think locality, and whether you call it terroir or just sourcing locally and sourcing quality ingredients, I think plays a really integral part to all English whisky distilleries, because at the scale that they're operating at the size that they're operating at, they can actually afford to work with single farms or at least single regions of barley production. We've got Bimber in West London. They definitely don't have a Scotch brook to get their spring water from, but they're working with really high quality barley from single farms. They're working with Warminster maltings with their own malting floor. So I think that the kind of the care and attention and love and passion that goes into English whisky is something that, while it's not unique, I think because it's at the outset, you're getting a lot of excitement and a lot of focus on the quality and focus on the quality of the liquid that people can then enjoy.
Yeah. I think there's certainly similarities between English whisky and Irish whisky, because Irish whisky, barring a few of the big players, they're all new. I mean, they're all in many ways finding their feet, and okay, they can hark back to this distilling tradition in Ireland for a long time. It comes from here, whiskey, but a lot of them are new setups or new business ventures. They're experimental casks. They're new still designs. So in some ways, it's England's maybe 5-10 years behind us, but it's not dissimilar. It's a similar story.
Yeah, I guess the difference is we didn't have those big established distilleries already up and running to springboard off. I mean, the photos that Justin's scrolling through here are from my trip to Bimber, which, as I said, is on an industrial estate in West London. This was actually the first distillery I ever set foot in. So I hadn't done the traditional go to Scotland and see the beauty and the splendour. It's literally next to a Chinese snack factory. And I thought I was in the wrong place at first, but on this small site, this unassuming little shed, as it were, Bimber are producing really, really amazing spirit. That's when they do release, it sells out in hours, if not minutes in some cases. But it's that small batch. It is something to get excited about, and that's the fantastic thing. Whether you're in West London or West Yorkshire or the Lakes, then there's a distillery near you.
Somebody's asked a very good question here, Marty. Colin Galt has asked, would there be barley left for Scotland?
Well, put it like this. There was pictures done the rounds not that long ago of Swedish barley being imported into Scotland, which caused a bit of an outrage. But the climate in Scotland's just not conducive to having huge amounts of barley. There are distilleries that grow their own barley, but it's in fairly limited amounts. When you take somewhere like Cardew, they're selling millions upon millions of bottles every year. There's no way that the Scottish agriculture could support that. So it has to come up. There's plenty of room. Don't worry, there'll be plenty of barley growing all over the place.
Yeah, definitely don't think we're going to run out anytime soon. But obviously, the weather plays a big part in it as well. So
that's surely. Yeah. Justin, I'm going to show you a wee surprise here. Hang on.
All right, I like wee surprises.
Do you know what that is?
That's a glass of water.
How often have you seen me drinking water, Justin?
I don't know. I thought it was maybe gin that one of the English distilleries has sent you over.
This is possibly the first time on this that I've drunk water. in its natural state.
Don't worry, I think Richard's drinking whiskey as well. now, listen, Richard, there's a number of distilleries involved in this. I mean, about a third of the English ones are involved in this. How do people go about getting tickets? Because I'm put on screen, this is the Eventbrite link and the brand. And if people click in the side column, they can actually get straight through to this if they're interested. Do we still have time for people in Northern Ireland to join up? Because it's still 2 full working weeks away, isn't it?
Yeah, so we've had a few challenges. It's the first time doing this. We've had a few challenges with some of the packaging and distribution. So we've actually had to end ticket sales for everywhere other than mainland UK, which is obviously really annoying. But yeah, if you are in the UK, then you can still buy tickets. We've got another week of ticket sales going on, and we're trying to work out a way that we can still allow people access to the festival, even if they don't have a tasting pack. So watch this space if you're in Ireland or the rest of Europe and would like to still participate. Okay,
because obviously, COVID-19 is putting the kibosh on a lot of stuff. We've been waiting for things to be delivered, and the last tasting, they only got the bottle for this tasting for the last tasting in England, if you know what I mean. It was crazy. It was madness. Now you've got a lot of other people on board with this as well, don't you?
Yeah, we've got a great lineup of hosts and other people sort of taking part. So Matthew Wright, as you might know from TV, he's actually opening the festival with our first session. Matthew's become a bit of a kind of English whiskey mascot in a way. So he's forged a strong relationship with Bimber, who I mentioned earlier, and he was involved in their session at the Somerton Festival, which was one of the first big online whiskey festivals during lockdown.
Yes, he's actually a big angler and whiskey connoisseur as well. So he's sort of your keynote opening speaker, but you've got a lot of other sponsors involved as well.
Yes, so we're really excited. We've got Two Keys, which is a London-based mixer company who make premium mixers. So that we've got some lovely green tea mixer, which goes really well with whiskey. And one of their brand ambassadors is doing a cocktail for one of our cocktail sessions. And as you can see there, we've got Indie Bay, who make these amazing pretzel snack balls, which are really delicious and go really well with whiskey. And then we've also got Love Corn, who obviously make fantastic roasted flavoured corn snacks. So yeah, lots of little things to enjoy on the side alongside the whiskey samples and the various spirits that we've got in the packs.
So what are you expecting from this? Because you've probably seen the likes of maybe Belfast Whisky Festival and other ones that Marty spoke for 18 hours at, Marty.
Yes, it was a marathon. No, I mean, the likes of this is the first English Whisky Festival of really any description. And the fact now you've had to do it online, that seems everything has to be done online these days. But where do you see it going? For next year, fingers crossed, we're out of all of this. Do you see having the same sort of online, maybe with live stuff mixed, or what can we look forward to essentially?
I think online tastings have become a thing that are here to stay. I think they're a really important part of the mix. Obviously, we all want to get back to meeting and sharing whiskey in person. That's a very important part of what this industry stands about. But online tastings allow you to reach a new audience. It's also a lot less intimidating. Going to a whiskey club or a whiskey bar for some people, that first time. I remember the first time I did it. I went to a London Whiskey Club event, with some kind of whiskey royalty in attendance, and it can be really intimidating, even if you think you know your stuff. So I think online is a great way to get people involved, get them excited. And almost be the gateway into then, joining a local whiskey club, going to festivals. But hey, even the whiskey show have had to do it online this year. So
everybody has to do it online this year. But me and Justin have been doing these now for a few months, and we've done a few whiskey tastings. And I try and not have brand ambassadors sitting here, guys from the distillery, because it's a bit like teacher in the room. And people often think when they're tasting whiskies, am I doing it right? Am I doing this right, or have I said something that's wrong? And I know exactly what you mean. There's this innate sort of pressure on you Have I said exactly the same as this other guy? Well, if you do, you probably read his notes. It's that's not how it works. So I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah, and actually that's one of the things that we're quite excited about with the festival and the structure that we've created. So rather than just tasting the whiskies and talking about the whiskies, we've actually created a series of sessions where members of the distilleries, but also our hosts, are going to really delve into topics that we feel are really relevant to the English whisky scene at the moment, and obviously around the production process and what makes each of their products unique. So it will be less of a lesson and a lecture and more of a kind of a discussion, an open forum, and obviously taking questions from the audience as well, and making sure that it's really interactive and it's not just a broadcast.
There's some international names in the hosts there as well, Richard.
Yeah, so you've got a photo of Felipe. So yeah, we've got a great lineup of hosts. Felipe is a Forbes whiskey writer. He's also the co-founder of the Rhythm and Booze project. So they pair music and alcohol, which are, I think, the two fantastic passions to put together. In fact, they've actually just released their own first whiskey, which I think is a 31-year-old grain. So yeah, he's very very passionate about whiskey. We've got Tim, who you brought up. So Tim Etherington Judge. He's actually the co-founder of Avalon Spirits, which is a sustainable Calvados brand. But he's also a sort of champion of positive wellness in the hospitality industry and sustainability, which is very important to them, and is also a really passionate subject for many of the distilleries in England as well now. And we've got Amy Seaton as well from Birmingham Whisky Club. So Amy's actually been heavily involved in sort of the planning and helping get this festival off the ground. So it's great that she's going to be hosting one of the sessions as well.
Fabulous. We're getting some great questions in tonight. Patrick is asking, is English whiskey restricted by any kind of technical file?
Oh, you're challenging me now. Look, I'm not an expert on distilling law, but the bottom line is that Scotch is very restrictive. There are some really hard set rules and regulations. Obviously, some of those are the same for English whiskey. It's got to be 3 years old. To be called a single malt, it's got to be malted barley. But actually, there is a lot more flexibility in England because we don't have that sort of equivalent of the Scotch Whisky Association dictating too many of the variables of how you can create your spirit. So I think that's exciting. It leads to innovation. It leads to things that may not work, but that kind of experimenting is always great to happen at the outset of something. I think at some point in the future there will be at least a definition of what English whiskey is, and I know that the distilleries are sort of having that conversation in the background. But for now, it's the Wild West, and people can pretty much do what they want as long as they hit those core basics.
Yeah, get off the horse and drink the milk.
Well, there's no geographical protection for English whiskey, so really, as you say, it is a Wild West. I mean, they can really mix and match and do what they want. I would be interested to know, would they do different barley grains? Because I think English whiskey would probably rely on single malt. I don't know whether they would be wanting to venture over into a pot still category, the Irish. What Patrick's getting at there is, traditionally Irish pot still whiskies had really quite wide and varied mash bills. But now they've come up with a technical file, which is, some people say it's quite restrictive. It's not really historically accurate, but it is what it is. If you want that geographical protection, then you kind of have to trade that off with innovation. And in England, I think they have, it is like the Wild West in many ways, a bit like Tasmania, actually.
Yeah, and look, a lot of distilleries are just working with barley, but you've got Oxford Artisan, the Oxford Artisan Distillery, otherwise known as Toad, which I love anyway in its name, but they're working with lots of heritage grains, so they make a fantastic rye spirit, which will become a rye whiskey, and that's very different to a lot of people's perception of what English whiskey is. We've also got real experimentation with casks and with process. So Deval Gandhi from the Lakes, previously from Macallan, he's not trying to replicate what he did previously. It's very much about taking the opportunity to find the best of everything and source the best of everything. And if it doesn't exist, then make it, and really bring that level of, I guess, science and precision into the process to deliver fantastic spirits at such a young age. And I think that's the other thing to remember is, when you drink English whiskey, English Whisky Company have an 11-year-old whiskey age statement whiskey out, but most whiskey from sort of the Cotswolds or other places, you're not drinking much more than 4 or 5 years. You know, it's amazing that the quality is what it is straight out the gate for so many of these distilleries.
Yeah. You come in there, Justin?
Yes, well, what I was going to ask you is, a lot of these English distilleries already have the gin brands. I've noticed that a lot of them do have, you know, other things like rum as well. How many of them are going to be purists and just go down the whiskey route?
I mean, obviously it changes distillery by distillery. I love all of the whiskey that England is producing, just because it's all different, you know, and it's always a different experience. Henstone, for instance, have won many awards for their gins, but they've got a corn dog liquor, which is a bourbon style whiskey, and they're experimenting with, you know, with corn in the mash bill. They've got their inaugural whiskey, you know, on its way, you know, maturing. So each style's so different. You know, they're all using different equipment. You look at the stills. You know, Henstone are using this kind of German Coast still, which is obviously fantastic for making gin, but also allows them to make whiskey and other spirits. As I said, Cooper King have got their Tasmanian still. We've got, you know, brandy and Calvados stills in the mix there. Oxford Artisan again have had their still made bespoke, I think by a shipbuilder, and it's very kind of Nautilus themed. You know, it's an amazing thing to look at. It's a real kind of Victorian, you know, inspired steampunk contraction. So I don't know where this started, sorry, but I've gone off on the sort of the array.
No, that's the best way to go, you know.
I mean, clearly, as you know from my technical experience this evening, technology is not my forte, which is why I'm probably a little bit darker, and God knows what my audio is like. But
do not have electricity in England. We had it in Larne in 1917. Switch the lights on.
put a copper penny in the meter.
50p. Go and ask the neighbour for 50p's.
So listen, are you at the panic stages now? You know, you've done all this through lockdown. Are you breaking it, so to speak?
Well, look, this is a hobby. This is, you know, I've got a day job. We've got 2 young children, so it's been a monumental challenge. I don't think my wife would ever let me do it again quite like this, but you know, we've had a load of help from. We've got a sort of a committee of people who are supporting, which is fantastic. The distilleries have been really supportive, and it is very much a partnership. But yeah, it's getting close now. We want to make it a brilliant experience for everyone that attends. Obviously, tickets are still available for people that want to join, and then there's all the logistics in the background getting tasting packs out. But yeah, I just can't wait for it to start now, and it's going to be a great weekend of of tasting fantastic English spirits, but also just hearing from the people behind why they are doing what they're doing and what inspired them. So it's going to be great.
So have you had any people coming out of the woodwork that maybe before would have poo-pooed English whiskey, like, I don't know, maybe Americans or Japanese people or anything like that there?
We've had quite a lot of requests actually from Americans if they can buy tickets and get the tasting packs. And sadly, we can't ship to the US for tax reasons. But again, you know, hopefully that's something we can overcome in the future. But it's amazing how quickly something like this spreads and the sort of reach. We've got quite a few people in continental Europe taking part, and obviously, you know, we're definitely shipping some packs this week to Ireland. So. Yeah, and we've got Scots. So, you know, everyone's getting involved. Everyone's interested, I think, in what English whiskey is and obviously will be.
Okay, Marty. Any final questions for Richard? Because we're we can run as long as you want tonight, but we wanted to fit you in the hope that you can logistically get stuff over to Northern Ireland or maybe even down south, the Republic of Ireland. But it is going to be tight. I know that.
No, well, I think the thing about it is it's another whiskey category that's coming along, and I think you'll start to see a sort of synergy between Ireland, Scotland, and England, where you'll get, obviously the big players will get their bit into it, but you'll start to see there's lots of new innovation, and you'll start to see people copying and taking and sharing information. In Ireland, the Irish Whisky Association has a mentoring program, which if you start a new distillery, they realise that a rising tide sort of lifts all ships. So in England, You could see how that would work out. You'd have the big players coming in, other people coming in, sharing information and growing. And as long as there's good spirit coming out, it's all to be there and be had.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what's so exciting, is that there's stuff now being laid down that we won't get to try for 3 years, but that will be that distillery's first ever whiskey, and that's happening across the board all the time in England. So it's a very exciting time to get involved, and if you're in England, go and find your local distillery, because you're probably not that far from one.
Yeah, well, this is it, and the fact that the gin craze, I think everybody's sort of the it's kind of at saturation point now. There's really not that much more innovation to be had in gin. I don't know enough about it, if I'm totally honest. But I think with whiskey, you've got all these new expressions, new ideas, new distilleries, all of this, and it's all there. And the more the merrier,
Yeah, you can see our little sample bottles that have been being bottled this week, which is really exciting. That was a sort of pipe dream many months ago. So to see that happening now and know that we are getting the product out to people is really exciting. And yeah, festival's going to be great. But this is all about the distilleries. It's all about their products. And as you say, some of them have gone for that pure whiskey route. Some of them have gone for that gin and other spirits in the meantime. But it's that eclectic mix of approaches that I think makes it really interesting at the moment. Actually, my wife is writing a note here saying that if you order tonight for Northern Ireland or the Republic of Ireland, we will make sure that if you order tonight, we'll make sure that we get whiskey to you.
Okay, so that's the link on screen beneath me here. Okay, it's coming up on screen here. Actually, does it? Yeah, I think it does. Yep. There it is. There, that link clicks you through, and that's how to order. And you can see it's from Be appreciative. Go for the high end package to make sure you get it. Okay, there you go. That's how you get it. Are you still doing a wee bit of a discount for us? Are you?
We've got a flash sale on some tickets at the moment this weekend, but okay. You have to check out. I'm not sure. We need to put the non-mainland Europe UK ones back on sale for tonight. So I'll do that straight after this, and you have to check out the link.
Oh, okay. Does your wife not appear on camera? Is she a scaredy cat? Is she? No.
She does. She keeps me in check. She does all the admin. She knows how to turn the lights on. Clearly.
Is she like Arthur Daly's wife? She doesn't really exist, is she? And mind her, is it? Is that what it is?
I owe her a huge debt for this festival. In fact, when we did the tasting on St George's Day back in April, we had 6 distilleries, and we sent 8 whiskies to 50 people each. We did a lot of hand bottling and hand labelling, and I thought she would never let me do another event again. So the fact that she's still here by my side, helping me, she's putting the tickets live right now on Eventbrite. So it's definitely a partnership here at this end.
I know people don't realise the work that goes into this. Michael Matthews is saying Arthur Daly called her indoors. I'd say that's it. It is a lot of work. It is all hands on deck, Richard. So listen, how's it going to work on the day? What are you doing it by? Are you doing it by Zoom? Are you doing it by Facebook ticketing, or are you in the process of working that logistics out?
We've got the logistics, thankfully. So it will be on YouTube. There'll be a link that only ticket holders will have access to, which will be sent out this week. And so, it'll be through the YouTube platform in terms of viewing the sessions. And we're obviously using some other technology at the back end. But.
Yeah, excellent stuff. That's a wonderful way to do it. Private link, YouTube. You can catch us, as you know, on Irish Whisky Review on YouTube and Irish Whisky Review on Facebook. Do add us on YouTube, because then you can see all the archives of the stuff. You've got a wee bit of an archive going there yourself, Richard, as well, haven't you?
Do you mean this?
Yeah, that's not too shabby looking. What's your favourite whiskey yourself? Is it peated ones? Is it foreign ones, or what's your tipple?
You have to say an English one. You're just trying to beat him here now, Justin. You're trying to beat him.
I'm not trying to beat him. I am not trying to beat him at all. No.
I'm still in that phase. whiskey's been in my life for about 4 or 5 years, really. So, I'm still in that phase where I'm just open to trying everything. The best whiskey is the one in your glass that you're enjoying. So, I love recommendations from people. And the great thing, obviously, about working within the sector is that you come across things and people recommend things that you wouldn't necessarily know about. So, yeah, right now I'm actually drinking the English Whisky Company's rum cask small batch, which is...
I'm a fan of a rum cask. I'm not rum. I find quite sweet, so it needs to be. Certain rums I can take, and other ones is not really for me. But I like a rum cask whiskey, and if I would recommend Killowen dark rum cask from Ireland. If you ever find yourself in the Glens of Antrim, come over and I'll get you a rum cask from Killowen.
That sounds like an offer I'll have to take you up on at some point.
You do that, my friend. You do that.
So one of the few places that people can actually go here and maybe feel safe because you have the NHS is across the water to England. Are some of these distilleries back open to the public, or are they doing hand gel at the minute? Because I've been to Adnams in Southwold there, where Michael Palin's from, and it's a fabulous place. It's a fabulous place. I mean, there's other breweries like Great Newson Brewery that do the Indian Pale Ale and stuff like that. I can see them going into things like whiskey now that whiskey's in the ascendancy and the renaissance. Which one would you recommend people visit?
I mean, I know that White Peak have tours open, Cotswold back on the tours. I think most of them are probably doing some kind of managed opening, socially distanced opening. I mean, you mentioned Adnams. I mean, that's a fantastic story because they had to get the law changed to actually allow them to place a distillery within the brewery. That wasn't actually allowed when they set out. So that was an amazing sort of achievement, because otherwise, what sits on site now wouldn't be the same at all, and they've got those fantastic copper stills. But yeah, I mean, I think that the point is, even if you're in London, you might think you're not going to be near a distillery because distilleries are in the countryside, or in those traditional places that you imagine a distillery to be, and yet we've got distilleries in sort of city centres in London and Bristol, and even if you're in cities like Manchester, they're just over the hills in the peaks in Macclesfield. So wherever you are, go and find your local or your nearest English whisky distillery, because they are everywhere now.
Yeah.
Are you trying to go round them in? Well, you could do one a weekend over 33 weekends now. Whereas we intend to do that in Ireland, but they even don't like you going to Donegal at the minute. We're not allowed, but it would take you an entire year going to one a day in Scotland, and then you've got the islands to get to, which doesn't really make it easy at all. Unless they build a bridge to Scotland, and then it'll be not too bad for us.
Whiskey Bridge,
Morris's Bridge.
Yeah, it'll just add about 50 quid each of our taxes for the next 50 years. It only costs 50 billion quid. But
I think after what he spent in the last sort of year, I don't think that's going to make a huge difference.
No, it wouldn't. So what aspect of the English Whisky Society's inaugural festival are you looking forward to yourself, Richard? Is there something you've added into this festival that you really want to experience yourself?
We're going to have fascinating sessions. We've got some amazing cocktails. In fact, I can announce here for the first time, this hasn't gone out publicly yet, but we actually have Mr. Lion himself making a cocktail for us on the Friday night. So if you don't know the name, I suggest you Google it. He is Britain's #1 cocktail mixologist, if not one of the leading in the world. And we're absolutely honoured that he's going to take part. Him and his team are going to produce a cocktail for us on the Friday night between our two panel sessions. So yeah, that's very, very exciting, and I can't wait to see what he's going to mix up for us.
Now you won't know this, but Marty actually hates cocktails.
No, Justin, don't. That's not. I'm a bit of a purist. I prefer thing in its own raw naked form, but cocktails have their place, just not in my mouth mostly.
Well, I think it's great to encourage people to enjoy whiskey however they enjoy it. So if you like the neat product, and that's the way you drink it. Fantastic. I always say to people, if you're going to mix whiskey with cola, please do it with a heavily peated one. Make a smoky cokey, and I'll have one as well. But we want people to enjoy it, and so cocktails are a great way to kind of add that extra layer of excitement.
Well, there was lots of vodka-based cocktails, and really all that they were doing was adding alcohol to like a fruit punch. That was really all they were doing. Whenever you actually have flavoured spirits, it actually contributes to the overall flavour. But just for me, I'm not a cocktail. You can see Justin. Justin would have an umbrella and a sparkler. One of those twirly Del Boy type cocktails. That would suit Justin.
Listen, I would love that. This has made my festival, because instead of just having like pot still peaty, malt or whatever, you actually have a drink, one that you can savor, and it really goes well with. I always think cocktails go well with a big plate of food or something like that. There, but Ryan Lyon there, he's a real coup for you to have. I mean, are these people doing it for free for you, or are you having to buy them in, or they're going stir crazy in the lockdown and only too glad to say, yeah, I'll mix a drink for you?
We're very lucky that pretty much everyone is taking part because they want to support English whiskey. They want to support English whisky distilleries.
That's fabulous.
The society is brand new. It's a hobby. I can promise you, no one's making any money out of this event. So yes, it's great that everyone is being so kind, but also I think it shows that there is a genuine excitement and willingness to be part of this English whisky scene as it develops and grows. So Ryan over at Mr. Lyon, he's already worked with some English whisky. He's already aware of the quality, and he's excited to be part of that. So, and then we've also got our quiz on the Friday night, which is hosted by Boutique Dave Worthington and Andy from Maltbox, another fantastic YouTube channel. Sorry, plugging your competitors there, but they're doing a fantastic quiz, which is going to be really good fun. And obviously, there's no need for a tasting pack for that. So if you have a ticket to any session, you get access to the whole festival, so you can take part in all of the fun. There's loads of prizes to be won. In fact, some of these bottles behind me are prizes. So it's going to be great. And we're very lucky how open everyone has been to the concept of doing this and supportive. So.
Well, the thing about whiskey that whiskey has over any other spirit is that people have a real genuine sense of pride. That's why the Scots hold on to whiskey. It's Scotch whiskey. They hold on to it. Irish hold their Irish whiskey. Bourbon, they hold on to it. And maybe with some rum, possibly, but whiskey's really a slightly different creature. And with people becoming more aware of English whisky, that's developing. You can see it developing really before our eyes at the minute. So it's a different animal. It carries more kudos with it than gin would. I'm sorry to say.
I think the thing is, gin is very scientific. You can work very hard to create very complex and interesting flavors. And I love a gin and tonic, but whiskey, you need the science, but you also need the magic. You need to trust in your instincts. You need to leave things and hope that in 3 years' time or more, you're going to have the product that you set out to create. And I think it's that sense of the unknown, the wonder, the magic around it that makes it such a fascinating and much talked about topic and product. So.
I think so. You do have that genuine sort of pride about it, which I don't think really comes with any other spirit. The French, possibly with their wine, that's a very different animal altogether, That's what it is. But you're going to speak, Justin?
Yeah, I was going to say, where is English whisky going to go in the next 5 years? What's going to happen? What do you think you're going to see develop? Do you think you'll see some of these smaller artisans places bought over by the big conglomerates as they maybe, well, obviously the big brands aren't going to feel threatened, but some of the smaller brands might think, well, actually this is a good fit. We might have there might be a synergy there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know one of the gin brands, Pin Gin, have actually just been bought out by a sort of slightly larger branding company to sort of elevate their product. And I think that there will be acquisitions and the usual trading within the sector. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of the big industry spirits players starts to take notice in the next couple of years. But I hope that as many distilleries as possible can retain their independence and their independent spirit, because that's what I think at the moment sets English whisky apart from Scotch is the sense that there is no big, obviously there's investment, but it's not on the scale of your kind of your big Scotch companies, and that time may come, and that might be a necessity for the category to grow. But as long as it retains that independence and that spirit and that sense of it being the Wild West and everything being possible, then hopefully it will retain its heart.
I don't think some of the big players coming in at a certain point it would be a bad thing. I think they would be quite happy to sit back and let the innovation and see where it goes, and then they can flood the thing with money. Which is kind of what they do. But no, I mean, there's a real place for everybody, and with all these different expressions and cask finish and production methods and so on and so forth. Wait, what's not to like about it? I think it's fabulous, and I do see lots of similarities between English whisky and Irish whisky. Over here, we have lots of new innovative distilleries. We have lots of new innovation like casks, etc., etc. And in some ways, some of the bigger players are actually playing catch up to some of the smaller guys. And you can see exactly the same thing happening in England. It's just we're maybe, as I say, maybe 5, possibly 10 years ahead of where England is. But it's fabulous. It's fabulous.
And for every distillery that does go on that route further down the line, there's going to be another new one starting out, and that I think you said what's going to change in English whisky in the next few years. My travel bill is going to go up exponentially. There's so many I've got to go and visit now. I thought it was about 14 about a year ago, and now we're kind of on 26. And every now and then you hear rumor that someone else is just starting up. So, but it's very exciting, and hopefully. They are the Cotswolds and the English and the Lakes of the next 6, 10, 12 years, and that keeps feeding the pipeline really of exciting new releases.
Richard, how are these new whisky distilleries being funded? Is it through existing businesses, or are they doing it through crowdfunding?
I know that there's a bit of everything going on out there. Some have seek sort of individual investment. Some have gone through more traditional investment routes, and some have crowdfunded. And I know that sort of Henstone is a group of friends that came together, and they really wanted to bring their passion to life. I don't know all the ins and outs of the funding, but there's definitely some that were crowdfunded, like Cooper King. And I think again, that's interesting. There's lots of different ways, lots of different models. A lot of the gin distilleries are obviously starting to look at producing whiskey if it hadn't been part of their plans already. So, I don't question the finance as long as the product's good. I don't mind.
No, that's it. We had some people last night. Did you notice some of the comments last night, Murray? Some people were saying they tried some of the English whiskey and they thought it was getting there, if not there already. But anyway, that's a good 45 minutes. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Richard. You're the founder of the English Whisky Society. How did you come up with the idea?
Well, so actually, it was I was running tastings locally here in South London, and a fantastic social enterprise called Ignition Brewery, and we were doing like themed tasting nights. So I did a 6 Nations. Which was tricky. I did manage to get a bottle of Puni Alba out of Italy, which is not an easy thing to do. But I was really impressed with the English whisky that we had on that tasting, and did a little bit of research and realised that there were lots of distilleries out there, but there was no central source of information, no hub, other than Cooper King's fantastic map, which, as I said, keeps needing updating. But it was very much just there's a gap here, and I was keen to be the one to fill it. Obviously, we've got a long way to go. We still don't even have the website live because the festival has been the focus of 2020. Yeah. So, but there'll be lots of exciting new things happening from the new year. We're looking at how we can bring more English whisky product into our members' hands. obviously tastings, events, tours, the whole shebang really. So yeah, watch this space and do sign up to our mailing list if you're interested to find out what's going to happen next. That'll be the best way to stay updated with all of the latest news.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much. Thank you, Marty, for another night. Thank you, Richard. Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys. Cheers for having me.